Hello, and welcome to the Mythic Lorebound. Tonight, we drift beyond the noise of the modern world and into a place where ancient stories still breathe softly in the dark. Lay back, clear your mind, and let the myth guide you gently into sleep. The evening descends over the Appalachian Mountains with a tenderness that belongs only to this ancient land. These old peaks, worn smooth by countless ages, hold their secrets close beneath a blanket of silver mist. Tonight, you are here, not as a traveler rushing through, but as someone who has come to listen, to rest, to let the mountain's quiet rhythm slow your heartbeat to match its own. The air is cool, but not cold. It carries the scent of pine needles and damp earth, of wood smoke drifting from some distant cabin hidden among the trees. There is no urgency here, no need to hurry. The mountains have waited for millions of years. They can wait a little longer while you settle into this moment, breathing slowly, letting your shoulders drop away from your ears. Above, the sky deepens into twilight, a soft indigo that will soon give way to star-scattered darkness. The first fireflies are beginning to emerge, their gentle lights blinking on and off among the laurel thickets like tiny lanterns carried by invisible hands. Everything here moves at the pace of growing moss, of roots reaching deeper into stone. You are safe here. You are welcome here. Let your breathing find its natural depth. There is nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else requires your attention. Just this quiet mountain evening and the stories it holds, and the soft path that leads you deeper into rest. The world you left behind grows distant now, fading like the last colors of sunset behind a ridgeline. Here, there is only the gentle mystery of these old hills, and the promise of a peaceful journey through their fog-wrapped hollows. The path begins at the edge of a small clearing where the forest meets a narrow dirt road, barely wide enough for a single wagon. The ruts in the earth are soft with moss, suggesting that few travelers come this way anymore. But the road is there, patient and inviting, winding upward between walls of mountain laurel and rhododendron that lean close like old friends sharing whispered confidences. You carry a lantern, though you cannot quite remember picking it up. Its glass panels are slightly fogged with age, and the flame inside burns with a steady golden warmth that seems to push back the encroaching twilight without chasing it away entirely. The light it casts is just enough to see the path ahead, illuminating a circle of earth and stone that moves with you as you walk. The road climbs gradually, never steep enough to strain, always winding in long, lazy curves that follow the natural contours of the mountainside. To your left, the land falls away into a hollow where fog is beginning to gather, pooling like slow water in the low places. To your right, the slope rises toward a ridge where the last daylight still clings to the crowns of ancient oaks and chestnuts. Your footsteps make almost no sound on the soft earth. The rhythm of walking becomes meditative, each step a small release of whatever tension you brought with you to this place. Left foot, right foot, the lantern swaying gently with your movement. The flame inside dances but never gutters, as reliable as your own heartbeat. A light breeze moves through the trees, carrying with it the cool promise of the night to come. It touches your face with gentle fingers, and you realize how warm you have been without knowing it. The mountain air is kind, neither too cold nor carrying any bite. It simply reminds you that you are alive, here, present in this moment of transition between day and night. The road takes you past an old split-rail fence. Its wood weathered is silver gray and soft as velvet to the touch. Wild grapevines have wound themselves through the rails, their leaves already showing the first hints of autumn color, even though summer still lingers in the valleys below. Beyond the fence, a meadow slopes away, tall grasses bowing and rising in slow waves as the breeze passes over them. There is a quality to the light here that seems to exist outside of time. Not quite sunset, not yet full dusk, but something suspended between the two. The kind of light that makes familiar things mysterious and mysterious things familiar. A hawk circles high overhead, its silhouette dark against the pale sky, riding the thermals in wide, unhurried spirals. Watching it, you feel your own thoughts begin to circle more slowly, drifting rather than racing. The path narrows slightly as it enters a grove of hemlocks, their branches creating a natural archway overhead. The air here is noticeably cooler, perfumed with the clean scent of their needles. Your lantern light catches on threads of spider silk strung between the tree trunks, each one beaded with tiny droplets of evening dew that sparkle like scattered diamonds. The spiders themselves are nowhere to be seen, their work complete for the day. You notice a stone marker beside the path, nearly hidden beneath a cascade of ferns. It is old, older than anything else you have seen so far, carved with symbols that time and weather have worn almost smooth. You cannot read what it once said, but its presence is comforting somehow, a sign that others have walked this way before you, that this path has been tended and remembered, even if it is seldom used. The road emerges from the hemlock grove onto an open stretch where the mountain's shoulder juts out, offering a view of the valleys below. The fog has risen significantly now, filling the hollows completely, transforming the landscape into an archipelago of dark ridges floating on a sea of white mist. Here and there, the fog is thin enough that you can glimpse the darker shapes of trees beneath it, like shadows moving slowly through deep water. Far below, in a gap between two layers of fog, you see a light. A single window glowing warm and yellow, impossibly distant but somehow clear. Someone else is awake in these mountains tonight, someone tending their own small flame against the darkness. The sight of it fills you with a quiet contentment, a reminder that solitude and isolation are not the same thing. Your own lantern seems to burn a little brighter in response, as if acknowledging its distant cousin. You stand for a moment, simply breathing, watching the fog continue its slow rise from the valleys. There is no rush. The road will wait. The mountain will wait. Everything here understands patience. When you continue walking, the path begins to descend slightly, following a long ridge that leads deeper into the mountains. The trees here are mixed, oak and hickory standing alongside the evergreens, their leaves rustling with a sound like distant water. You realize you have begun to hear other sounds as well, the small music of the mountain evening. Crickets beginning their nightly chorus, a whippoorwill calling from somewhere in the darkness to your left, the soft hoot of an owl claiming its hunting territory. None of these sounds are jarring. They blend together into a tapestry of gentle noise that somehow deepens the silence rather than breaking it. You find yourself listening with a different part of your mind, not trying to identify each sound, but simply letting them wash over you like water, like wind, like breath. The road takes you past a spring that bubbles up from beneath a shelf of mossy stone. The water is so clear, it is almost invisible, revealing itself only by the way it catches and fractures your lantern light. It pools briefly in a natural basin before overflowing and beginning its long journey down the mountain. You pause, drawn by some instinct older than thought, and cup your hand to catch some of the water. It is cold, shockingly pure, tasting of stone and earth and the deep places beneath the mountains. Drinking it feels like a small ceremony, an acknowledgement of the gifts this place offers to those who move through it slowly enough to notice. A few drops spill from your hand and vanish into the moss, already beginning their return to the mountain. Refreshed, you continue along the path as it winds between massive boulders that must have tumbled from the heights above in some age before memory. They are covered in lichen now, their surfaces painted with pale green and dusty orange patterns that seem almost deliberate in their beauty. In the crevices between the stones, ferns unfurl their delicate fronds, each one a perfect spiral of green life. The fog is closer now, tendrils of it reaching across the path like curious fingers. Your lantern light catches it and holds it, transforming the mist into something almost solid, almost luminous. Walking through these wisps of fog feels like passing through veils, each one marking a deeper descent into the mountain's quiet embrace. You notice that the quality of darkness has changed. What was twilight has become true night, but it is not the harsh darkness of cities or the empty void of places without stars. This is a gentle darkness, soft and encompassing, broken by the steady glow of your lantern and the faint light of a moon just beginning to rise somewhere beyond the eastern ridges. The path leads you to a wooden bridge spanning a narrow creek. The planks are weathered but solid, and they make a pleasant hollow sound beneath your footsteps. Below, the water moves over smooth stones, its voice a constant murmur of contentment. You pause in the middle of the bridge, looking down at the way your lantern light dances on the surface of the water, creating patterns of light and shadow that never repeat. On the far side of the bridge, the road forks. Both paths look equally inviting, equally mysterious in the gathering darkness. But there is a feeling, more instinct than thought, that draws you to the left-hand path. It climbs more steeply, winding up through a stand of white pines whose trunks glow pale in the moonlight that has begun to filter through the fog. The climb is gentle despite the steeper grade, and you find yourself settling into a comfortable rhythm. Your breathing deepens, but does not labor. Your legs carry you upward with an easy strength, as if the mountain itself is helping to lift you higher. The scent of pine resin is strong here, mixed with the earthier smell of decaying leaves and the cool dampness of fog. You pass beneath a natural rock overhang, where water drips steadily from above, each drop catching the lantern light before falling to darken the stone below. The sound is hypnotic, a liquid metronome marking time in a place where time itself seems to move differently. You could stand here for hours or for heartbeats, and it would feel the same. But the path calls you onward, and you follow it around a curve where the trees open up to reveal a small clearing. In the center of this clearing stands an old apple tree, gnarled and twisted with age, but still bearing fruit. The apples glow pale in the combined light of lantern and moon, and their scent is almost overwhelming in its sweetness, like all the autumns that ever were concentrated in this single moment. You do not pick any of the fruit. Something tells you they are not yours to take, that they belong to the mountain and to the creatures that make their homes here. But you stand beneath the trees, spreading branches for a time, grateful for its presence, for the way it marks this place as special, as apart from the ordinary world. When you leave the clearing, the path begins to level out, running along the shoulder of the mountain through a forest of mixed hardwoods. The canopy overhead is thick enough to block some of the moonlight, but your lantern guides you faithfully, its flame never wavering. You notice that the fog has thinned at this elevation, allowing you to see farther into the forest on either side of the path. There is movement in the darkness between the trees, not threatening, just the ordinary life of the mountain night. A deer moves ghost-like through a patch of ferns, pausing to look at you with dark, liquid eyes before bounding away with silent grace. A raccoon waddles across the path ahead, unafraid, barely glancing at you as it goes about its nocturnal business. You are not alone here, but neither are you intruding. You are simply one more creature moving through the mountain darkness, following your own path, seeking your own rest. The animals seem to understand this, treating you with the same courtesy they extend to one another. The mountain's peace is large enough to hold all of you. The path takes you past a grove of birches, their white bark luminous in the darkness like a gathering of slender ghosts. The breeze stirs their leaves into whispered conversation, a sound like rain that is not rain, like voices that speak no words you can understand, but whose meaning is clear nonetheless. Rest, peace, all is well. You feel your eyelids growing heavy, but it is not an uncomfortable sensation. It is the gentle weight of true relaxation, of muscles finally releasing tensions they had held for so long you had forgotten they were there. Your pace slows slightly, not from fatigue, but from a growing sense that there is no destination that cannot wait, no urgency that cannot be set aside. The road brings you to another overlook, and you pause again to take in the view. The moon is higher now, 3/4 full and bright enough to cast shadows. Below, the fog has become a solid sea of white, completely upscaling the valleys and lower slopes. Only the highest ridges emerge from it, dark islands in an ocean of mist that seems to glow with its own pale light. Stars are visible now, scattered across the deep blue-black of the sky in patterns that have guided travelers and dreamers since before there were names for such things. You recognize none of the constellations, or perhaps you recognize all of them, old friends whose names you have temporarily forgotten. It does not matter. They shine regardless, patient and eternal, marking time in their slow wheel across the heavens. Your lantern light seems dim compared to the brightness of the moon and stars, but remains comforting, familiar, a small circle of warmth in the vast coolness of the mountain night. You adjust your grip on its handle and continue along the path, which has begun to descend again, following a long, gradual slope that leads deeper into the mountains. The trees here are older, larger, their trunks so thick that 3 people could not link hands around them. They are oak and chestnut, the giants of the forest, standing in cathedral silence beneath the stars. Walking among them feels sacred somehow, like entering a space that has been set apart for contemplation and quietude. Moonlight filters through the canopy in silver shafts, illuminating patches of forest floor where mushrooms glow pale against the dark earth. Some are as white as bone, others tinged with yellow or faint orange. You know better than to touch them, but you admire their quiet beauty, the way they transform decay into new life, feeding on the fallen leaves and returning nourishment to the soil. A fox appears on the path ahead, its coat red gold even in the moonlight. It regards you calmly for a long moment, and you freeze, not wanting to frighten it away. But the fox seems unconcerned. It sits, scratches behind one ear with a hind leg, then rises and trots away into the underbrush with its tail held high like a banner. You smile, charmed by this brief encounter, this small gift the mountain has offered. The path winds on, sometimes climbing, sometimes descending, always following the natural contours of the land. You have lost track of how long you have been walking, and it does not concern you. Time has become elastic here, measured not in minutes or hours, but in footsteps and breaths, in the slow turning of the earth beneath the stars. You pass through a grove of mountain laurel, their dark leaves glossy in the lantern light. In spring, these bushes would be covered with pink and white flowers, but now they simply stand watch along the path, their branches creating a natural tunnel that guides you forward. The ground beneath your feet is soft with accumulated leaves, muffling your footsteps until you seem to glide rather than walk. The fog has begun to rise again, or perhaps you have descended to meet it. Wisps of mist curl around the tree trunks, pool in the hollows beside the path, drift across the road in slow procession. Your lantern turns it golden, and walking through it feels like moving through honey, through amber, through something warm and safe and impossibly gentle. Ahead, you see a shape emerging from the fog. As you draw closer, it resolves into a small cabin, tucked back among the trees, just off the main path. Its walls are made of weathered logs, chinked with moss and clay. A stone chimney rises from one end, and though no smoke emerges from it now, the smell of old wood smoke clings to the place like a memory of warmth. One window glows with soft light, and as you approach, you see that a lantern burns inside, its flame twin to the one you carry. But the cabin is silent, and something tells you that knocking on the door would not be right. This is a way station, perhaps a shelter for travelers, but it is not yet time to stop. Your journey has more to show you still. You pause outside the cabin only long enough to appreciate its presence, to feel grateful that such refuges exist in these mountains for those who need them. Then you continue along the path, which skirts the cabin's small clearing and plunges back into the forest beyond. The trees close in again, their branches creating a network of shadows that shift and sway in the breeze. Your lantern light plays across bark and leaf, revealing textures and patterns you would never notice in daylight. The rough surface of oak bark becomes a landscape in miniature, canyons and ridges in brown and gray. The smooth skin of a beech trunk glows like pewter, covered with carved initials and dates from travelers who passed this way decades or even centuries ago. You do not add your own mark to the tree. Your passage through this place will leave no trace beyond the temporary depression of your footsteps in the soft earth, and even those will be erased by the next rain, the next scattering of fallen leaves. This feels right somehow, this ephemeral quality of your presence. You are a guest here, and guests do not carve their names into their host furniture. The path begins to climb again, more steeply this time, and you feel your breath quicken slightly. But the effort is not unpleasant. It warms your muscles, focuses your attention on the simple mechanics of placing one foot above the other, finding purchase on stone and root. The lantern swings more noticeably with your movement, casting wild shadows that dance ahead of you up the trail. You emerge onto a rocky outcrop where the trees cannot grow, and suddenly the world opens up around you. The mountain falls away steeply to your left, and far below you can see the fog-filled valley glowing pale in the moonlight. To your right, the slope continues upward, covered in low shrubs and scattered boulders. Ahead and behind, the ridgeline stretches away into darkness, a spine of stone running through the heart of the mountains. The wind is stronger here, unobstructed by trees, carrying with it the cool breath of the heights. It whistles softly through the rocks, a sound like distant flutes, like voices singing in a language older than words. You stand for a while, letting the wind wrap around you, feeling it tug at your clothes and hair. It is cold enough to be invigorating, but not uncomfortable, a reminder that you are alive, awake, present. Above, the stars seem closer, brighter, as if the elevation has brought you 1,000 miles nearer to them. The Milky Way stretches across the sky in a river of light, and you understand suddenly why ancient people saw it as a road, a path that souls might travel on their journey to whatever comes after. Tonight, it seems entirely possible that you could simply step off this rocky outcrop and find your feet upon that celestial highway, walking among the stars as easily as you have walked among the trees. But your path leads downward again, back into the sheltering forest, and you follow it gratefully. The wind's keen edge has made you appreciate the relative warmth between the trees, the way the forest holds heat close like a blanket. Your lantern light seems especially golden and welcoming after the silver brightness of the starlight. The descent is gradual, following a series of long switchbacks that allow you to lose elevation without strain. The rhythm of downhill walking is different from climbing, requiring a different kind of attention, a willingness to lean back slightly and let gravity do some of the work. You find this rhythm quickly, naturally, your body remembering skills it learned long ago, perhaps before you were even born, inherited from ancestors who knew mountains as home. You pass through a section of forest where the trees are younger, slender trunks reaching upward toward gaps in the canopy, where older trees have fallen. The understory here is thick with ferns and young saplings, all competing for the extra light. In a few decades, one or two of these youngsters will dominate, growing tall and spreading their branches to claim the space. But for now, they are all equal in their striving. all reaching toward the same distant sun. The path levels out as it enters another hollow, this one narrow and steep-sided. A creek runs down its center, its voice louder here, more urgent than the lazy streams you passed earlier. The water tumbles over and around stones, smoothed by countless seasons of flow, creating a music that is both chaotic and somehow perfectly ordered. You walk alongside it for a time, enjoying its company, grateful for the way its sound fills the darkness. Where the creek broadens into a shallow pool, you pause again. The water is so clear that you can see every pebble on the bottom, even in the uncertain light of lantern and moon. Small fish dart away from the lantern's glow, their scales flashing silver before they disappear into the shadows beneath an undercut bank. A crayfish moves backward across the stream bed, its claws raised defensively, though you pose no threat. You kneel beside the pool and splash a little water on your face. The shock of cold is welcome, bracing, clearing away any remaining cobwebs of the day's concerns. The water runs down your neck and dampens your collar, and you do not mind. It is a baptism of sorts, a washing away of what was a preparation for whatever comes next. Refreshed again, you rise and continue along the path. The creek stays with you for a while longer, then veers away to the left, following its own course down the mountain. Your path climbs out of the hollow, switchbacking up the opposite slope through a forest of pine and hemlock that fills the air with their clean, resinous scent. Near the top of the climb, you notice a change in the quality of light. Your lantern still burns steadily, but there is another glow ahead, warmer and more diffuse than moonlight. As you crest the rise, you see its source, a small settlement of cabins, perhaps 5 or 6, clustered around a central clearing. Lights burn in several windows, warm and welcoming, and smoke rises from 1 or 2 chimneys, climbing straight up through the still air before dispersing among the stars. But like the solitary cabin before, something tells you this is not your destination. You are meant to see these places, to know they exist, to draw comfort from the evidence of human habitation in these wild mountains. But your journey continues, winding past the settlement along a path that skirts its edge, close enough to smell cooking food and hear the muffled sound of voices, but not so close as to intrude. A dog barks once, twice, then falls silent. Somewhere a door opens and closes. Life continues in these small pockets of civilization, ordinary and domestic, a counterpoint to the wild darkness that surrounds them. You draw comfort from the balance, from knowing that both exist, that there is room in these mountains for the wild and the tame, for solitude and for community. The path leads you away from the settlement, back into the forest, which seems darker now by contrast with the cabin lights. But your eyes adjust quickly, and your lantern guides you faithfully onward. The trees here are mixed again, and you notice that the understory is more open, allowing you to see deeper into the forest on either side of the path. Movement catches your eye. A group of deer, perhaps 6 or 7 of them, moving through the trees parallel to your path. They are silent as ghosts, placing their hooves with perfect precision, their white tails flickering like flags. You slow your pace, not wanting to startle them, and they slow as well, keeping their distance but not fleeing. For a time, you travel together, human and deer following separate but parallel paths through the mountain night. Eventually, they veer away, disappearing into a thicket of mountain laurel, and you are alone again with your lantern and the path and the endless patient darkness. But you do not feel lonely. The mountain is full of life, visible and invisible, and you are part of that fullness, one thread in the vast tapestry of existence that these old hills support. The path descends into another hollow, this one broader and more gentle than the last. A meadow spreads out to your left, its tall grasses bowing in waves beneath the moonlight. The fog has retreated somewhat, pooling in only the lowest areas, and you can see across the meadow to the dark wall of forest on its far side. In the center of the meadow stands a lone tree, massive and spreading, its branches reaching out in all directions like the arms of some ancient being frozen in an eternal gesture of embrace. Even from a distance, even in the darkness, you can sense its age, its power, the weight of all the years it has stood in this place, offering shade in summer and shelter in storms. The path does not lead directly to the tree, but neither does it forbid such a visit. You leave the main trail and walk through the tall grass toward it, your passage marked by the swaying of seed heads and the soft swish of stems against your legs. The grass is dry despite the fog, and it rustles pleasantly as you move through it. Up close, the tree is even more impressive. Its trunk is so thick that 10 people could not link hands around it, and its bark is deeply furrowed, creating a landscape of ridges and valleys that must shelter countless insects and small creatures. The lowest branches are as thick as normal trees, reaching out almost horizontal before turning upward toward the sky. You set your lantern down at the tree's base and rest your hand against the bark. It is cool and rough beneath your palm, and you imagine you can feel a slow pulse, the movement of sap through vessels as old as your great-great-grandparents, as old perhaps as the settlement itself. The tree has witnessed so much, stood patient through so many seasons, so many storms, so many cycles of life and death and rebirth. Standing here, you feel your own concerns shrink to their proper size. Whatever worries you carried into these mountains seem small and temporary compared to the tree's enduring presence. Your troubles will pass, as all things pass, but the tree will stand, rooted and strong, offering its silent testimony to the possibility of permanence, of continuity, of staying true to one's nature despite everything the world might throw at you. You do not linger too long. The tree does not need your admiration to be magnificent, and the path ahead still calls. You retrieve your lantern and make your way back through the meadow grass to where the trail continues its winding course through the mountains. The night is deepening now, moving toward that small hour when darkness is most complete, when even the moon seems to pause in its journey across the sky to catch its breath. Your own breathing has settled into a deep, slow rhythm, and you notice that your thoughts have become quieter, less insistent, like children finally settling down to sleep after a long and busy day. The path takes you through one last grove of ancient trees, their trunks standing so close together that the canopy overhead blocks out most of the moonlight. Here, your lantern is your only guide, its small circle of golden light the only thing that separates you from complete darkness. But you are not afraid. The darkness here is friendly, protective, like being wrapped in soft blankets or held in gentle arms. You can hear the forest breathing around you, the small sounds of night creatures going about their business, the rustle of leaves, the creak of branches swaying in the breeze. These sounds have become familiar now, comforting in their constancy. They tell you that the world continues, that life goes on, that you are part of something much larger than yourself. The trees begin to thin, and ahead you can see another clearing, this one larger than the others you have passed. As you emerge from the forest, you find yourself at the edge of a wide meadow that slopes gently upward toward the base of a cliff face that rises pale and luminous in the moonlight. And there, nestled against the cliff, barely visible in the darkness, is a cabin. This one is different from the others you have passed. You can feel it even before you see it clearly. This one has been waiting for you. Your journey through the fog is reaching its first resting place. The cabin sits in perfect stillness against the cliff face, as if it grew there naturally, like the mountain laurel and the twisted pines. Its stone chimney rises against the pale rock behind it, smoke curling slowly upward, dissolving into the night air like whispered secrets. A single window glows with warm light, not bright enough to be intrusive, but welcoming in the way that only inhabited places can be. You cross the meadow slowly, in no hurry now, letting the tall grass brush against your legs with each step. The earth beneath your feet is soft and yielding, and you can smell the green scent of growing things mixed with the sharper tang of the pine forest that surrounds this hidden hollow on three sides. As you draw closer, you notice details. A rocking chair on the narrow porch, moving slightly in the breeze as if someone had just risen from it. A stack of split firewood, neatly arranged beneath the overhang of the roof. Bundles of dried herbs hanging from the eaves, their shadows dancing in the lantern light that spills from the window. The door is slightly ajar, an invitation that needs no words. You pause on the threshold, lowering your own lantern, suddenly unsure whether to enter or to wait for some sign. But from within comes a voice, neither male nor female, neither young nor old, but somehow ageless and familiar as the mountains themselves. Come in, traveler. The night grows deep, and the stories are waiting. You push the door open gently and step inside. The cabin's interior is a single room, larger than it appeared from outside, with a ceiling of rough-hewn beams dark with age and smoke. A fire burns on the hearth, not roaring but settled into that perfect state of glowing coals and slow flame that can burn for hours without tending. The light it casts is golden and dancing, creating shadows that shift and sway across walls made of fitted logs. The furniture is simple but well-crafted. A table beneath the window, its surface worn smooth by decades of use. Two chairs flanking the fireplace. A bed in the far corner, covered with quilts and patterns that tell their own stories. Geometric designs in deep blues and warm earth tones. Shelves line one wall, holding jars and bottles and bundles of things you cannot quite identify in the uncertain light. But the room is empty of people. The voice that invited you and seems to have belonged to no one, or perhaps to everyone, or perhaps to the cabin itself. You stand just inside the door, uncertain again, until you notice a second rocking chair near the fire, facing the first, clearly meant for you. You cross the room and settle into it, setting your lantern on the floor beside you. The chair creaks slightly under your weight, then begins a gentle rocking motion that you barely have to encourage. The rhythm is soothing, and you feel the last tensions of the journey beginning to drain away, flowing out of your muscles like water, leaving you loose and easy in the firelight. The fire pops softly, and a small shower of sparks rises up the chimney. You watch them climb and disappear, and in their rising you seem to see shapes, patterns, the beginning of stories that have no words but that speak directly to some deeper part of your mind. These mountains are old. The voice comes again, seeming to rise from the fire itself, from the walls, from the very air. Older than the trees that grow upon them, older than the memory of anyone now living. They were here before the first people walked into these hollows, and they will be here long after the last person is gone. But they remember. Oh yes, they remember. You settle deeper into the chair, letting your eyes half close, watching the firelight through your lashes. The warmth on your face is perfect, not too hot, just enough to make you aware of the gentle, cool air at your back, the balance of comfort. They remember when the ice came down from the north. The voice continues, soft and rhythmic as the crackling fire. Great sheets of it, taller than the tallest trees, grinding slow over the land. The ice did not reach these mountains, but its breath came ahead of it, cold and sharp, and the creatures that lived here then moved down into the valleys, or changed, or perished. You can almost see it in the fire, the slow advance of glaciers, the transformation of the world. But there is nothing frightening in the image. It is simply change, the way the earth has always changed, the way it will always change, patient and inexorable as seasons. When the ice finally retreated, the world was made new. Different plants grew in the valleys. Different animals returned to the forests. And after a long time, longer than we can easily imagine, the first people came. They found these mountains waiting for them, patient and protective, offering shelter and sustenance to those wise enough to live in balance with what they provided. The rocking chair creaks in rhythm with your breathing, and you realize the two have synchronized without your conscious effort. Rock and breathe. Rock and breathe. The simplest meditation, the oldest prayer. Those first people learned to listen to the mountains. They learned which plants would heal and which would harm. They learned where the springs rose clearest, where the game trails ran, where to shelter when the storms came down from the heights. They learned the language of birds and the warnings of deer. They learned to read the sky and to respect the thunder. A log shifts in the fire, settling deeper into its bed of coals. The light changes subtly, and in that change you see figures moving through ancient forests, carrying knowledge in their hands and hearts, passing it down through generations until it became woven into the very fabric of their being. They told stories, the voice says, growing softer now, more intimate. Around fires much like this one, they told stories of how things came to be. Why the bear has a short tail. Why the raccoon wears a mask. Why the raven can speak in a voice almost human. They told these stories not just to pass the time, but to remember who they were, where they came from, how to live well in a world that was both beautiful and dangerous, generous and demanding. You find yourself nodding slightly, though you are barely aware of the movement. Yes, you think. Stories matter. They are how we make sense of the world, how we find our place in it. One story they told, "The Voice Continues," was about the thunder beings who lived in the highest peaks. Great spirits of the storm, neither good nor evil, but powerful beyond measure. When they grew angry, lightning split the sky, and rain fell in torrents that could wash away whole mountainsides. When they were pleased, they sent gentle rains that made the corn grow tall and the springs run clear. You can almost hear it now, beneath the crackling of the fire. A distant rumble, not quite thunder, but the memory of thunder, echoing through the mountains. The people learned to speak with the thunder beings. They made offerings of smoke and song. They danced in patterns that mirrored the patterns of the storms. Not to control the thunder, for that was impossible and foolish to try, but to show respect, to acknowledge the power that shaped their world, to live in right relationship with forces they could never fully understand. The fire has burned down lower now, the flames shorter, the coals glowing deeper red. The light in the cabin has become dimmer, more mysterious, perfect for stories and dreaming. Another story spoke of the little people who lived in the secret places of the forest. Not quite human, not quite spirit, but something in between. They were tricksters sometimes, leading travelers astray, hiding tools, souring milk. But they could also be helpers, showing the lost the way home, protecting children who wandered too far from the settlement, teaching the secrets of herbs to those who approach them with proper respect. You smile slightly, thinking of all the stories you have heard about fairies and elves and hidden folk. Every culture seems to have them, these intermediary beings who live just beyond the edge of the everyday world. Perhaps because they represent something true, something about the way the world is stranger and more various than our daylight minds want to admit. The old people, the voice says, even softer now, barely louder than your own breathing. They knew that these mountains held mysteries that could never be fully explained. Lights that danced on ridges where no one lived. Voices that called in the fog, speaking names that no one had spoken in years. Paths that appeared and disappeared, leading to places that couldn't be found twice. The rocking chair slows, and you let it, your breathing slowing with it. Your eyelids are growing heavy, but you do not want to miss the stories. You want to hear them all, to let them sink into your mind like rain into earth. They did not fear these mysteries. Fear would have been pointless. And besides, the mysteries were part of what made the mountains home. They accepted that there were things they would never fully understand, and they were content with that. They knew that the world was larger and stranger than their comprehension, and they found comfort in that knowledge, not terror. The fire pops again, softer this time, and you watch a small flame dance along the edge of a log, blue-green for just a moment before fading back to gold. In the autumn, the voice murmurs, when the leaves turned color and began to fall. They knew that winter was coming. They gathered what they needed, stored food, cut firewood, prepared their shelters. But they did not dread the winter. They welcomed it as a time of rest, of storytelling, of sitting by fires much like this one and remembering all that had come before. Your own thoughts are growing quieter now, less distinct. They drift like leaves on a slow current, barely stirring the surface of your mind. They understood. The voice says, so soft now it might be your own thought, that everything has its season, growth and rest, activity and stillness, waking and sleeping, all part of the same great cycle, the same endless turning of the wheel. There is a time for journeying, and there is a time for sitting still, a time for seeking, and a time for simply being. The fire has settled into pure coal now, glowing deep red like the heart of some ancient star. The light it casts barely reaches the corners of the room, and the shadows have grown thick and soft, like blankets waiting to enfold you. In the winter darkness, the voice whispers. They would sit together and share what they knew. The old would teach the young. Songs would be sung that had been sung for longer than anyone could remember. Patterns would be traced in the ashes that held meaning deeper than words. And slowly, so slowly that no one noticed it happening, the darkness would begin to lessen. The days would grow longer, and they would know that spring was coming, that the wheel had turned again, that all things continue in their proper time. Your breathing has become so slow and deep that each breath seems to take forever, and in the space between breaths, you can hear the mountain breathing with you. The cabin breathes, the forest breathes, the whole world draws in and lets out, in perfect rhythm, in perfect peace. There is no need to hurry. The voice says, barely a whisper now, barely even sound, more like a thought forming in the warmest, quietest part of your mind. The stories will wait. They have waited for centuries. They will wait a little longer. Rest now. Let the fire warm you. Let the darkness hold you safe. You are exactly where you need to be. The rocking chair has stopped its motion, and you are still, perfectly still, balanced in a moment that seems to stretch out forever. The fire glows, the shadows gather, and somewhere in the distance, so far away it might be imagined, an owl calls 3 times, its voice carrying across the hollow like a blessing. Time passes, though you have no way to measure it. The fire continues its slow burning. The cabin holds its warmth, and you drift in a space between waking and sleeping, where stories become dreams and dreams become stories, where the boundaries between self and world grow thin and finally dissolve. When you next become aware of your surroundings, the fire is burned even lower. The room is darker, but not uncomfortably so. The window shows a darkness that might be deepest night, or might be the hour just before dawn, when the world holds its breath waiting for the light. The voice speaks again, but it has changed, or perhaps you have changed, become able to hear it differently. It sounds like water now, like wind, like the slow grinding of stone on stone as the mountains wear themselves down over eons too vast to contemplate. Before there were people in these mountains, it says there were the animals, the deer and the bear, the wolf and the panther, the turkey and the crow. They knew these trails before any human foot had touched them. They found the springs, sheltered in the caves, raised their young in the hollow trees. They were the first inhabitants, and in their way, they still are. You see them in your mind's eye, moving through the forest in the long ago time before history. Not the tame, cautious animals of today who have learned to fear human presence, but creatures that moved with absolute confidence through a world that was entirely their own. The bear, the voice continues, was chief among them, strong and wise, fierce when necessary, but preferring peace. The bear knew where the best fishing was, where the berries grew thickest, where to den in winter and emerge in spring. The bear taught the people many things when finally they came. How to find food in the forest, how to sleep through the dark times and wake renewed, how to be strong but not cruel, powerful but not destructive. The image of a bear fills your mind, not a specific bear, but the essence of bareness, the idea of bear. Massive shoulders, intelligent eyes, claws that could kill or dig for roots with equal facility. A creature of enormous capability, choosing gentleness when gentleness was possible. The deer was sacred too, the voice says, fleet and graceful, alert and cautious. The deer taught the people to be watchful, to listen for danger, to move through the world with awareness. But the deer also gave itself as food, offering its body so that others might live. And in return, the people honored the deer, wasted nothing, gave thanks for the sacrifice. You can almost feel it, the weight of that relationship. Hunter and hunted bound together in a dance older than memory, each playing their part, each honoring the other's role. Not sentiment, but deep respect, recognition that all life feeds on life, that this is not cruel, but simply the way of things. The raven, the voice continues, its tone shifting slightly, taking on an almost amused quality, was the trickster. Too clever for its own good, always scheming, always looking for advantage, but clever in useful ways too. The raven could solve problems, could see solutions that others missed. The raven reminded everyone not to take themselves too seriously, that there was room in the world for laughter, even in the midst of hardship. You find yourself almost smiling, thinking of ravens you have seen, their intelligence evident in their bright eyes, their complex social behavior. Birds that can make tools, recognize individual humans, hold grudges and friendships across years. Too smart by half, as your grandmother might have said. All the animals had their lessons to teach, the voice says. The fox taught cunning, the owl taught patience, the opossum taught the wisdom of sometimes playing dead, of choosing survival over pride. The beaver taught the value of steady work and building for the future. Each creature a teacher, each one showing by example how to live well in this world. The fire shifts again, and in the pattern of coals you can almost see them. All these creatures, gathered around some ancient fire of their own, sharing their wisdom, passing on what they knew. But the animals, the voice says, growing quieter again. They kept their deepest secrets to themselves, where they truly went when they died, what they dreamed in their winter sleep, what they saw with eyes that perceived colors humans could not see, smelled with noses that detected things humans could not smell. These mysteries they kept, and they keep them still. There is something comforting about that idea, that the world holds secrets that will never be fully revealed, that there are depths to reality that remain untouched by human understanding. It makes the world larger, more mysterious, more worthy of wonder. In the deepest winter, the voice murmurs, when snow lay thick on the mountains and ice locked the streams, the people would sometimes hear wolves singing in the darkness. They were nearly gone now, the wolves, hunted until few remained. But their voices could still be heard sometimes, rising and falling in harmonies that seemed to speak of things beyond human knowing. You listen, and beneath the crackling of the fire, beneath the creaking of the cabin's timbers, beneath even your own breathing, you almost hear it, a distant singing, rising and falling, neither sad nor joyful, but something more complex, more true. The voice of the wild, speaking its own name. The people would listen, the voice says, and they would remember when the world was wilder, when the boundary between human and animal was not so clear, when a person might put on a bearskin and become bear, or a deer might speak with a human voice and offer guidance. Those times were passing, or perhaps had already passed, but the memory remained, living in stories, in songs, in the howling of wolves on winter nights. Your eyes are closed now, though you don't remember closing them. Behind your eyelids, you see forests older than thought, mountains higher than any that now exist, rivers running clear and cold through valleys that have long since filled with soil and time. The old ones say, the voice whispers, barely audible now, that the animals still speak. But humans have forgotten how to listen. We hear their sounds, but not their meaning. We see their tracks, but cannot read the stories they tell. We have grown deaf and blind to the larger conversation that fills the world around us. A sadness touches you, gentle as the brush of a moth's wing against your face. All that wisdom, all that ancient knowing, fading like morning mist under the sun. But here, the voice says, and there is comfort in its tone, in these mountains, in these quiet hollows where the old ways linger just a little longer, sometimes the barrier grows thin. Sometimes, if you're very quiet, very still, very patient, you can hear them still. The animals speaking, the trees whispering, the stones telling their slow stories of the ages they have witnessed. You hold yourself very still, barely breathing, and you listen. And in the deep silence of the cabin, in the warm darkness, you hear something. Not words, but meaning. Not language, but communication. A sense of presence, of other minds moving through the world, aware and alive in ways different from human awareness, but no less real. The fire breathes out a long, slow sigh as a log finally collapses into ash. The sound is like contentment, like satisfaction, like something settling into its final form after a long and useful life. Rest, the voice says, so soft now it is barely there. Rest and listen. The mountain will keep watch. The fire will burn as long as it needs to. You are safe here. You are held here. Nothing requires your attention. Nothing demands your energy. Simply rest. Simply be. Let the stories wash over you like water, like rain, like the patient wearing away of stone by the passage of endless time. Your breathing has become so slow and deep that you are barely aware of it. You drift in a space where sleep and waking have lost their meaning, where you are consciousness without thought, awareness without effort, presence without purpose. You simply are, and that is enough. That is everything. The darkness gathers closer, not threatening, but protecting. The walls of the cabin seem to expand outward, becoming the walls of the hollow, becoming the slopes of the mountain, becoming finally the embrace of the whole night sky with its slowly wheeling stars. You are held. You are safe. You are exactly where you belong. And in that knowledge, you sink deeper still into peace. The transition from one state to another is so gradual that you cannot say when it happens. Perhaps you have been sleeping. Perhaps you have been in some state beyond sleep, some realm where the mind rests more deeply than dreams allow. But slowly, gently, like a leaf rising on a current of water, you drift back toward awareness. The cabin is darker now. The fire has burned down to the faintest glow, individual coals visible like small red stars against the black ash. The window shows the particular quality of darkness that comes just before dawn, when night is deepest, but holds within it the promise of light to come. You are still in the rocking chair, though you have shifted position slightly in your sleep. Your neck is comfortable, not stiff. Your body feels rested, loose, warm beneath a quilt that you do not remember pulling over yourself. It is soft and heavy, smelling faintly of cedar and lavender, the scent of careful storage, of things preserved against time. The cabin is silent now. If the voice was ever here, it has moved on, or perhaps merged so completely with the mountain silence that it cannot be distinguished from it. But you do not feel alone. The presence that filled this place earlier remains, patient and protective, asking nothing, offering everything. Outside, you become aware of sounds. The first birds stirring in the darkness, making small sounds that are not yet songs but the prelude to song. The settling of dew on leaves. The slight movement of air that comes just before dawn, as if the world is drawing breath before beginning a new day. You let the quilt fall from your shoulders and rise slowly from the chair. Your body moves easily, without stiffness, as if the night's rest has done more than merely restore energy, has somehow renewed you at a deeper level. You feel lighter, clearer, as if something you have been carrying, without knowing it, has been gently lifted away. The fire still holds a few embers, and you add a small piece of wood from the stack beside the hearth. It catches almost immediately, flame running along its edges, bringing a small return of warmth and light to the room. You do not need much, just enough to see by, just enough to honor the fire's patient service through the night. You retrieve your lantern from beside the chair and light it from the fire. The wick catches cleanly, and the flame settles into its steady burn. The glass is still slightly fogged, giving the light a soft, diffuse quality that seems appropriate for this hour between night and day. Looking around the cabin one last time, you see it clearly in a way you did not before. Every object has its place, chosen with care, used with respect. The jars on the shelves hold dried herbs and preserves, put up against the winter. The quilts on the bed are works of art, each one telling a story in its patterns. The simple furniture shows the marks of long use, the patina that comes only from years of gentle handling. This is a home, you realize, not just a shelter, but a place where someone has lived fully, carefully, with attention to beauty and meaning. Whoever dwells here, whether human or spirit or something in between, they have created a space of peace and purpose. You move to the door and open it slowly. The air that enters is cool and fresh, carrying the green scent of dew-wet plants, the mineral smell of stone, the complex perfume of forest dawn. You step out onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind you with a soft click. The meadow spreads before you, silver with dew in the pre-dawn light. Each blade of grass holds its crown of moisture, and the whole field seems to glow with a soft luminescence, as if it is captured and is slowly releasing the moonlight that fell upon it during the night. The sky above is beginning to change, still dark in the west, but to the east, beyond the ridgeline, you can see the first hints of color. Not yet pink or gold, but a gradual lightening, a thinning of the darkness. The first intimation that day is coming, though it has not yet arrived. You descend the steps from the porch and begin walking across the meadow. Your feet make dark tracks through the dew-silver grass, a trail that will remain visible until the sun rises high enough to dry the moisture away. For now, you mark your passage, leaving evidence that you were here, that you walked this path in this liminal hour. The air is so still that your lantern flame barely flickers. It burns straight and true, a small anchor of warmth in the cool morning. The cold does not bite, but it makes you aware of your breathing, each exhalation visible as a small cloud of vapor that dissipates almost immediately in the still air. You walk slowly, in no hurry, savoring this moment that exists only once each day, this hinge between darkness and light. Everything is suspended, waiting. The day birds have not yet begun their full chorus. The night creatures have not yet sought their rest. You walk through a world that belongs fully neither to darkness nor to light, but to the threshold between them. The path leads you to the edge of the meadow where the forest begins again. Different trees now, their bark pale in the growing light. You recognize them as birches, a grove of them, their white trunks glowing like candles against the darkness of the forest behind them. As you enter the grove, you notice that the ground is covered with moss, so thick and soft that your footsteps make no sound at all. It is like walking on a carpet woven from green velvet, and the sensation is so pleasant that you slow even further, wanting to savor each step. The birch trees stand close together, their branches interweaving overhead to create a natural cathedral. What little light exists seems to gather here, reflecting from bark to bark, multiplying until the grove is noticeably brighter than the forest around it. It is a sacred space, you think, though sacred to what or whom you cannot say, only that it feels set apart, special, worthy of reverence. You pause in the center of the grove and set your lantern down. For a moment, you simply stand, breathing, being present. The stillness is so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat, steady and calm. You can feel the movement of blood through your veins, the expansion and contraction of your lungs, all the quiet machinery that keeps you alive operating smoothly, effortlessly, without need for conscious direction. You are alive in this moment, and that simple fact seems miraculous. To be here, now, in this place at this hour, to have eyes that can see the pale birch bark and the green moss, to have ears that can hear the first tentative bird songs beginning in the distance, to have lungs that can breathe this clean, cold air. to have a body that can walk and stand and simply be. Gratitude wells up in you, not for anything specific, but simply for existence itself, for the fact that there is something rather than nothing, for the improbable chain of events that led to this moment, to you, to consciousness experiencing itself in this particular configuration of matter and energy. You breathe it out, that gratitude, letting it flow from you like water from a spring, not directed at any particular deity or force, but simply released into the world as an acknowledgement of gift, of grace, of the fundamental mystery of being. After a time, you pick up your lantern again and continue. The path leads out of the birch grove and begins to climb, winding upward through a forest of mixed hardwoods. The slope is gentle but sustained, and you feel your legs working, your heart rate increasing slightly. It is pleasant, this mild exertion, this reminder that you have a body capable of effort. The light continues to grow. You can see farther now, making out individual trees, the texture of bark, the shape of leaves. Colors are beginning to emerge from the monochrome of night, the brown of tree trunks, the green of moss and fern, the russet of fallen leaves carpeting the forest floor. You pass a small stream that crosses the path, running over smooth stones with a cheerful burbling sound. The water is so clear you can see every pebble on the bottom, and you pause to crouch beside it, cupping your hand to catch some of the flow. It is cold enough to make your teeth ache, pure and sweet, tasting of stone and earth and the high places where it was born. You drink deeply, feeling the cold spread through your chest, waking you more fully, clearing away the last wisps of sleep. When you rise and continue, you notice that the bird song has intensified. A chorus now, not just individual voices. Cardinals whistling their clear notes. Chickadees calling their own names. A wood thrush somewhere in the distance. Its flute-like song cascading through the forest like liquid gold. The path crests a small rise and emerges onto an outcrop of stone, and suddenly the world opens up before you. The valleys spread out below, still filled with fog that glows white and pink in the growing light. Above, the sky has become a canvas of color, deep blue, fading to turquoise, fading to gold, fading to rose. And there, just breaking above the eastern ridgeline, the first arc of the sun, you watch as it rises, patient and inevitable, bringing light back to the world. The fog in the valleys begins to glow brighter, transforming from white to gold, becoming a sea of light that laps against the dark islands of the ridges. The warmth touches your face, and you close your eyes, feeling it. Not just heat, but life itself. Energy that has traveled across 93 million miles of emptiness to reach this small stone on which you stand. The same energy that powers all life on Earth, that feeds the plants, that feed the animals, that feed the people. All of it coming from this ball of fusion fire that rises with such perfect regularity that we have built our entire civilization around its rhythms. When you open your eyes again, the world has transformed. What was mysterious in darkness is revealed in light. The forest below is a carpet of green stretching to the horizon, broken only by outcrops of stone and the silver threads of streams. In the distance, you can see range after range of mountains, each one hazier than the last, fading into blue distance. This is why they call them the Blue Ridge. You think, in the morning light, they truly are blue, as if the sky has pooled in the valleys between them, as if the earth and air have merged into something that is both and neither. You stand for a long time, watching the light spread, watching the fog begin to burn away from the valleys, revealing the rivers and roads and occasional buildings below. The world is waking up, coming to life, beginning another day of the endless cycle that has continued for billions of years and will continue for billions more. But you are not rushing down to join it. Not yet. There is still peace to be found here, still quiet to savor. You settle onto a sun-warmed rock and let yourself simply sit, simply be present with the morning. Your lantern, no longer needed, you extinguish. The flame goes out with a small sigh. Its work done, having carried you safely through the night. You will light it again when darkness returns, but for now, the sun is enough. Time passes in that way it has when you're not watching it, not measuring it, not worrying about it. The sun climbs higher. The fog retreats farther down the valleys. The birds continue their songs, settling into the patterns of the day. A hawk circles overhead, riding the thermals that are beginning to rise from the warming earth. Eventually, you feel ready to move again. The path leads on, skirting the edge of the outcrop before diving back into the forest on the far side. You follow it, leaving the overlook reluctantly, but knowing that all things have their time, and the time for sitting and watching is past. Now is the time for walking, for moving through the world, for seeing what else the mountain has to show you. The forest here is different, the trees older and larger than any you have passed through so far. These are the giants, the patriarchs, oak and hickory and chestnut that have stood for centuries. Their trunks are massive, their branches spreading wide, creating a canopy so dense that the forest floor is relatively open, too shaded for much undergrowth to thrive. Walking among them feels like being in a great hall, a natural cathedral where the roof is living wood and the pillars are rooted deep in the earth. The air is cool despite the sunrise, the thick canopy holding the night's chill close. But it is not uncomfortable. It is refreshing, invigorating, making you aware of the contrast between the sun-warmed clearings and the forest shade. You notice that many of the largest trees have cavities in their trunks, some at ground level, others high overhead. These are homes, shelters for countless creatures, raccoons and possums denning in the lower holes, owls and flying squirrels in the upper ones. Each cavity is a small world unto itself, a refuge carved from living wood. The thought makes you smile. The trees, in their dying, provide life for others. The wood that rots away creates the very shelter that protects new generations. There is a lesson there about generosity, about how even our endings can be gifts if we allow them to be. The path winds on, sometimes level, sometimes climbing or descending, always following the natural contours of the land. You have lost track of direction, trusting the path to lead you where you need to go. The sun provides some orientation, but you find you don't really care which way you're heading. There is no destination in mind, only the journey itself. You pass through a section of forest where every tree trunk is covered in moss, thick and emerald green, so lush it looks like velvet. The air here, is noticeably moister, and you hear the sound of running water somewhere nearby, though you cannot see it. The moss, you realize, is drinking moisture from the air itself, thriving in this hidden, humid microclimate created by the nearby stream. A little farther on, the path descends into a ravine where the stream becomes visible, cascading over a series of small waterfalls, each one a few feet high, creating a staircase of water and stone. The sound is constant but not loud, a soothing background music that fills the ravine with its voice. You find a flat rock beside the lowest pool and sit, watching the water. It is mesmerizing, the way it falls and flows, always moving but always the same. Different water molecules passing through the same pattern, the same dance, over and over again. Like the mountain itself, constantly changing yet fundamentally unchanging. Small fish dart in the pool, seeking shelter beneath the overhanging stones when your shadow falls across the water. A water strider dances on the surface, its feet dimpling but not breaking the surface tension, skating on the boundary between air and water like a creature from a dream. You could sit here for hours, days perhaps. The water would continue its falling, the fish would continue their darting, the world would turn and the seasons would change, and it would all be perfect, all be enough. But the path calls again, leading upward out of the ravine on the far side. You rise, casting one last look at the cascade, committing it to memory, knowing you will likely never see this exact place again, but grateful to have seen it once. The climb out of the ravine is steeper, and you feel your breath quickening, your muscles working harder, but it is still pleasant, still well within your capability. The path has been kind to you throughout this journey, never demanding more than you could give, always offering rest when rest was needed. At the top of the climb, the forest opens up again into another meadow, this one smaller than the first, more intimate. Wildflowers are blooming here, late summer varieties, asters and goldenrod, and something with tiny purple flowers whose name you don't know, but whose beauty you can appreciate anyway. Butterflies work the flowers, moving from bloom to bloom with tireless efficiency. Monarchs and swallowtails, sulfurs and blues, each one a small miracle of design, of evolution, of life finding ways to be beautiful while fulfilling its essential functions. You walk slowly through the meadow, careful not to disturb the butterflies, though they seem unafraid. One lands on your shoulder and stays there for several steps before launching itself back into the air. The touch of its feet is so light you barely feel it, but the gift of its brief companionship is real and warming. On the far side of the meadow, you notice something you hadn't seen before. A bench, simple and weathered, placed a face back across the meadow toward the view beyond. It is made of split logs, smoothed by time and use, and it looks as if it has been here for years. Decades perhaps. You sit, and the bench holds you comfortably, its wood warm from the sun. From here, you can see back across the meadow to the forest beyond, and beyond that, visible through a gap in the trees, another range of mountains, blue and hazy with distance. It occurs to you that this might have been someone's favorite place, that they might have come here often to sit and think, to rest and observe, to simply be present with the beauty of this place. And when they could no longer come themselves, They left this bench for others, an offering of comfort, a gift to strangers they would never meet. The thought moves you deeply. This small act of generosity, asking nothing in return, expecting nothing, simply offering. You send a silent thank you to whoever built this bench, wherever and whenever they are, hoping that they knew joy in this place, hoping that they found peace. The sun is climbing higher now, approaching midday. The light has lost its golden dawn quality and become the clear white light of full day. The air is warming, though it remains pleasant, never too hot. A breeze moves through the meadow, setting the flowers to nodding, carrying with it the scent of sun-warmed grass and wildflower pollen. You sit for a while longer, content to be still, to let the day unfold around you without needing to direct it or control it, or be anywhere other than exactly where you are. The butterflies continue their work. The breeze continues its gentle movement. The mountains stand patient in the distance, as they have always stood, as they will stand long after you, and everyone you know has returned to dust. There is comfort in that permanence, comfort in knowing that while your life is brief, measured in years or decades, the mountains measure time in millions of years, in the slow uplift and erosion of continents, in cycles so vast that human existence is barely a flicker. You are small, you think, but not insignificant. Every consciousness that experiences the world adds something to it, bears witness to it, participates in the grand mystery of being. You are here now, in this moment, seeing these mountains, breathing this air, feeling this sun, and that matters, even if only to you. Eventually, you rise from the bench and continue. The path leads back in the forest, descending now, beginning the long journey back down from the heights. But you are not sad to be descending. Every part of the journey has its purpose, its own beauty. The ascent and the descent, the heights and the valleys, all parts of the same whole. The trees here are younger, more closely spaced. Sunlight filters through the canopy in broken patterns, creating pools of light and shadow on the forest floor. You walk through these pools, in and out of brightness, and it feels symbolic somehow, like moving through the natural patterns of life itself. Joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion, all alternating, all necessary, all part of the journey. You pass through a grove of young pines, their needles soft beneath your feet, their scent strong in the warm air. Ahead, you can see the forest thinning, suggesting another clearing, another open space. As you emerge from the trees, you find yourself at the edge of another meadow, and in the distance, you can see it, the cabin where your journey began. Not the one where you spend the night, but another one, or perhaps the same one, transformed by the light of day. It is hard to say. The mountains play their tricks with time and space, folding them in ways that maps cannot capture. But it does not matter. What matters is that the circle is closing, the journey finding its completion. You have walked through the night and into the day. You have sat with stories in silence. You have rested and woken. You have experienced the mountain's breath, the slow in and out of its eternal existence. You walk across the final meadow slowly, savoring these last steps. Your body is pleasantly tired, the kind of fatigue that comes from movement rather than stress, from use rather than abuse. You feel strong, capable, at peace. The cabin door is open, just as you left it, or just as you found it. You cannot remember which. Inside, the fire is burned down to nothing but white ash, but the room is warm with sunlight streaming through the windows. The quilts are neatly folded on the bed. The jars on the shelves catch the light and glow like jewels. You step inside and stand for a moment, letting yourself feel the gratitude again for this shelter, for this journey, for the mountain that has held you safe through the night and into the day, for the stories that have been told and the silences that have been kept, for everything that has brought you to this moment. There are no words adequate to express what you feel, so you don't try to find them. You simply stand in the grateful silence, letting it be enough. And then, because all things must end so that new things can begin, you turn and walk back out into the sunshine. The path leads on, down the mountain, back toward the world you left behind. But you are not the same person who began this journey. You have been transformed in small ways that you may not fully understand for days or weeks or months to come. You carry the mountain with you now. Its peace, its patience, its eternal perspective. You carry the stories, the animals, the spirits of the place. You carry the memory of firelight and starlight, of fog and forest, of water and stone. And as you walk down the path, you know that you can return here anytime you need to. Not to this physical place, though that too if you wish, but to this state of peace, this sense of connection, this quiet knowing that you are part of something much larger than yourself. The mountain is always here, breathing its slow breath, turning through its seasons, holding its stories, and you are always welcome. The path winds downward, and you follow it, carrying your lantern though it is not lit. The sun is bright, the day is beautiful, and there is no need for artificial light. But you know, as you walk, that night will come again, and when it does, you will light your lantern once more. You will find your way through the darkness. You will listen to the stories that only the darkness can tell. You will rest when rest is needed, and walk when walking calls to you. This is the rhythm of things. Day and night, light and shadow, journey and rest, all cycling, all returning, all part of the great pattern that holds everything in its gentle hands. The path takes you through a section of forest where the trees are draped with wild grapevines, their thick woody stems climbing toward the light, their leaves creating cascades of green that sway gently in the breeze. Here and there, clusters of grapes hang heavy, not yet fully ripe, but promising sweetness to come. A squirrel chatters at you from a high branch, not alarmed, but simply announcing your presence, maintaining the constant communication that fills the forest even when human ears cannot detect it. You wave to the squirrel, and it flicks its tail in response before bounding away through the canopy, leaping from branch to branch with absolute confidence. The path descends through a series of easy switchbacks, losing elevation so gradually that you barely notice the change. But when you pause and look back, you can see how far you've come, how high the cabin sits above you now, barely visible through the trees. You realize you feel no regret about leaving. The mountain has given you what you needed, and now it is time to carry that gift back into the world. There is a season for retreat, and there is a season for engagement. Both are necessary. Both are sacred in their way. The forest here is filled with the sounds of day. Insects buzzing in the warm air, birds calling to one another, no longer singing their dawn chorus, but maintaining contact, establishing territory, going about the business of survival. Somewhere in the distance, a woodpecker hammers against a tree, the sound carrying clearly through the forest like a natural telegraph. You pass a fallen log that has become a nursery for new growth. Moss covers it completely, and from the moss sprout ferns and small seedlings, a whole community of life feeding on the nutrients the log provides as it slowly returns to soil. In a few years, the log will be gone completely, indistinguishable from the forest floor, but the trees it nurtured will continue growing, reaching toward the canopy, carrying forward the legacy of the elder that fell. Nothing is ever truly lost, you think. Everything transforms, changes form, becomes something new. The mountain teaches this with every falling leaf, every crumbling stone, every seed that splits and sends roots downward, shoots upward. Death and birth are not opposites, but partners in the dance of existence. The path leads you to a small stream, different from the others you've crossed, this one running through a bed of smooth white quartz stones that make the water seem to glow from within. You kneel beside it and splash water on your face again, feeling the cold shock of it, the clean, pure taste when you cup your hands and drink. Small minnows scatter at your approach, their shadows fleeting across the white stones. A dragonfly hovers above the water, its wings catching the light, its body an iridescent green that seems almost artificial in its intensity. You watch it for a moment, marveling at the engineering of those wings, the precision of its hovering, the ancient lineage it represents. Dragonflies were among the first creatures to conquer the air, flying through prehistoric forests hundreds of millions of years ago. When you stand and continue, you notice that the character of the forest is changing again. The trees are becoming more varied, more mixed. Dogwoods with their distinctive bark stand among the larger oaks and maples. Sourwood trees display the first hints of autumn color, their leaves touched with red, even though summer still holds sway. The path broadens, becoming more distinct, suggesting that you are approaching more traveled areas, places where people pass through more frequently. But there is still no one else visible, no sound of human activity beyond the whisper of your own footsteps. You are grateful for the continued solitude, for the chance to complete this journey in the same quietness with which you began it. There will be time enough for conversation, for the noise and bustle of ordinary life. For now, the silence is a gift you continue to unwrap with each step. A chipmunk darts across the path ahead, its cheek pouches bulging with seeds, intent on some urgent mission of storage and preparation. It pauses on a rock to regard you briefly, whiskers twitching, then disappears into a crevice between two stones. You smile at its industry, its serious attention to the business of survival. The path takes you past another old stone wall, this one more intact than the first you encountered. Its rocks still carefully fitted together despite decades or centuries of frost and root action. On the far side of the wall, you can see the remains of what must have been fields once, now reclaimed by forest, but still showing the subtle terracing that speaks of cultivation, of human hands shaping the land to human purposes. Those people are long gone, their names forgotten, their stories lost except for what these stones and terraces can tell. But they lived here once, worked this soil, raised their families, laughed and wept and loved and lost, and continued on as all people do. They were as real as you are, as present in their moment as you are in yours. The thought is humbling and comforting at once. You are part of a long chain of consciousness, of experience, of beings who have looked at these same mountains and felt what you feel now. Wonder, peace, a sense of connection to something larger and older and more enduring than any individual life. The path begins to level out, running along the bottom of a broad valley. The stream you've been paralleling grows larger here, joined by tributaries from side hollows, its voice deepening from a cheerful babble to something more mature, more measured. The water is still clear enough to see the bottom, but it runs deeper now and faster, purposeful in its journey toward the rivers below. You come to a place where someone has built stepping stones across the stream, flat rocks placed at careful intervals to allow crossing without getting wet. You pause on the middle stone, balancing there, suspended between one bank and the other, and look downstream at the way the water flows around and past you, constantly moving, constantly changing, yet always essentially the same. A water snake glides through the shallows, its body undulating in perfect sinuous curves. It is harmless, just a common water snake hunting for minnows and crayfish. But even if it were dangerous, you would feel no fear here, only the calm observation of another creature going about its life, neither good nor evil, but simply being what it is. The snake disappears beneath an overhanging bank, and you step across the remaining stones to the far side of the stream. The path continues, climbing slightly now, leaving the creek behind as it follows a different contour of the land. You enter a grove of hemlocks, their feathery needles creating a cathedral ceiling overhead, their shade so deep that the air temperature drops noticeably. The ground is soft with fallen needles, and the air carries that clean, slightly astringent scent that hemlocks impart, like the forest breathing mint and pine into the world. In the dimness beneath the hemlocks, you see movement. A doe and her fawn, the fawn still spotted even though it must be several months old now. They freeze when they see you, the doe placing herself between you and her offspring, ready to flee or fight as the situation demands. You stop walking and stand very still, making yourself as non-threatening as possible. You don't look directly at them, but slightly to the side, using your peripheral vision to watch. Slowly, the doe relaxes. She lowers her head and begins browsing on the low vegetation, keeping one ear turned toward you, but apparently deciding you pose no immediate threat. The fawn, bolder or more curious than its mother, takes a few steps toward you, neck stretched out, nostrils working to catch your scent. The doe makes a soft sound, half warning, half reassurance, and the fawn stops but does not retreat. You stand for several minutes, barely breathing, honored by this proximity, this moment of trust or at least tolerance. Then, moving very slowly, you take a careful step backward, then another, removing yourself from their space, giving them the respect of solitude. The doe watches you go, and once you've put enough distance between them, both deer bound away through the hemlocks, white tails flashing in the dimness, moving with that effortless grace that makes running look like floating. Your heart is full as you continue along the path. These encounters with the wild, brief as they are, feel like blessings, like small sacraments that remind you of the miraculous ordinariness of life. The constant miracle of consciousness encountering consciousness across the boundaries of species. The hemlock grove gives way to more mixed forest, and the path begins a gentle descent again. You can sense, though you cannot yet see it, that you are approaching the end of your journey through the heights, that the path is leading you back down toward the inhabited world. But there is no urgency in your steps. You allow yourself to move slowly, to savor these final stretches of trail, to drink in every detail of bark and leaf and stone. You know that when you return to ordinary life, to schedules and responsibilities and the rush of modern living, these memories will become a refuge, a place you can return to in your mind when you need to remember peace. The path takes you through a section where the trees open up enough to allow thick undergrowth. Rhododendron bushes, so dense you cannot see more than a few feet into them on either side of the trail. These are the rhododendron hells that old-timers speak of, thickets so dense that even animals avoid them. Places where a person could become hopelessly lost only a few yards from the path. But the path itself remains clear, well-defined, and you follow it without concern, trusting it as you have trusted it throughout this journey. It has not led you astray yet, and you do not believe it will start now. You emerge from the rhododendron tunnel to find yourself at another overlook, this one facing west. The sun is past noon now, beginning its slow descent toward evening, though that is still hours away. The light has that thick, golden quality of afternoon, making everything it touches seem more real, more present, more vivid. Below, you can see signs of civilization. Roads running through the valleys, their surfaces catching the sun, buildings here and there, small settlements nestled among the trees. The geometric patterns of farms, their fields marked out in orderly rectangles so different from the organic chaos of the forest. It is the world you will return to soon, and you feel no dread at the prospect. That world has its own beauty, its own rhythms, its own place in the order of things. Human civilization, for all its flaws and follies, is also a natural phenomenon, another way that consciousness expresses itself in the physical world. But you are grateful for this time apart, for the perspective it has given you. The world down there will demand things of you, will pull you in many directions, will sometimes seem overwhelming in its complexity and noise. But now you know that the mountain is here, that peace is possible, that there is still wilderness both around you and within you that no amount of civilization can entirely erase. You sit on a rock at the overlook's edge, dangling your feet over the drop, feeling the sun warm on your back. A hawk circles below you, riding the thermals that rise from the valley floor. You watch it spiral higher and higher, effortlessly gaining altitude, until it is just a speck against the blue sky. Time passes in that timeless way it has when you are content, when you are exactly where you want to be doing exactly what you want to do. The sun moves across the sky. The shadows shift and lengthen. The hawk disappears over a distant ridge. Eventually, you rise and continue. The path leads down from the overlook through a series of tight switchbacks, losing elevation more quickly now, committed to the descent. Your knees absorb the impact of downhill walking, your body adjusting automatically to the different demands of descending versus climbing. You pass through a section of forest where every tree is wrapped in poison ivy vines, their stems as thick as your wrist climbing toward the canopy. You give them wide berth, careful not to brush against them, even though you know that in some native traditions, poison ivy was considered sacred, a plant that taught the lesson of boundaries, of respecting what should not be touched. The path leads you to a small clearing where someone has placed a bench, similar to the one you found earlier but newer, the wood not yet weathered to silver. A plaque is mounted on its back, and you pause to read it. In memory of Eleanor Richards, who loved these mountains and walked these trails until she could walk no more. May all who rest here find the peace she found among these hills. You sit on Eleanor's bench for a moment, hoping that wherever she is now, whatever form her consciousness has taken or dissolved into, some part of her knows that her love for this place continues to serve others, that her gift of this bench provides comfort and rest to strangers decades after her passing. The bench faces back up the trail toward the mountains you have descended from, and you understand the choice. Eleanor must have loved to sit here and look back at where she had been, remembering her journeys, savoring the views, contemplating the path she had walked. You do the same, looking back up at the ridges now above you, at the forest climbing toward the heights. You've been up there, have walked those hidden trails, have experienced what Eleanor experienced. You are connected to her through this place, through the love you both feel for these mountains, across whatever years separate her time from yours. When you rise and continue, you carry her with you, another ghost among many that haunt these mountains in the best possible way. Not frightening spirits, but gentle presences, the accumulated love and attention of all who have walked here, who have found something in these hills worth returning to, worth protecting, worth remembering. The path broadens significantly now, and you realize you're approaching the trailhead, the place where forest meets parking lot, where wilderness meets pavement. You can hear the distant sound of cars on a highway somewhere below, the first mechanical noise you've heard since beginning this journey. Part of you wants to slow down, to make these last steps last as long as possible. But another part knows that you cannot live in the wilderness forever, that you have responsibilities and relationships and a life waiting for you below. The art is not in staying on the mountain, but in carrying the mountain with you when you leave. You round a final curve, and there it is, the trailhead, a small parking area, currently empty except for one car that must be yours, though you have no clear memory of driving here. A kiosk with maps and information about the trail system, a trash can, and a water pump. You walk to the water pump and work the handle, feeling the resistance, and then the flow as cold groundwater surges up from below. You let it run over your hands, splash it on your face, drink deeply from cupped palms. It tastes the same as the mountain springs you drank from on the trail, a reminder that it's all the same water, all connected, flowing from the heights to the lowlands and back again through the endless cycle of evaporation and rain. You look back at the trail entrance, at the forest beyond it, at the mountains rising in the distance. Thank you, you think, not sure who or what you're thanking, but feeling the gratitude nonetheless. Thank you for the journey, for the peace, for the stories, for the reminder of what matters and what endures. The path will still be there tomorrow and the day after, and for all the tomorrows you have left. The mountain will continue its slow breathing, its patient wearing away and building up, its eternal dance of stone and water and time. The animals will walk their trails, the streams will run, the seasons will turn, and when you need to remember, when the world becomes too loud or too fast or too much, you can close your eyes and return here in your mind. You can walk again through the fog, sit again by the fire, listen again to the old stories whispered by wind and water and stone. You turn toward your car, but before you reach it, you pause one more time. The sun is lowering now, the light taking on that warm amber quality of late afternoon. In a few hours, it will be evening again, and then night, and the mountains will be wrapped once more in darkness. But now you know what lives in that darkness. Not fear, but peace. Not emptiness, but fullness. Not the absence of light, but a different kind of light, one that shines from within, from the stories we tell ourselves, from the connections we make with the land and with each other, and with the great mystery of existence itself. You take one long, deep breath, filling your lungs with mountain air, holding it for a moment, then releasing it slowly. The breath becomes part of the mountain's breath, part of the great respiration of the planet, the endless exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide that binds all living things together in mutual dependence. Then you walk to your car, set your lantern carefully on the passenger seat, and prepare to return to the world below. But you are not the same person who came here. You have been touched by the mountain, changed by the journey, gentle by the darkness and the dawn. As you drive slowly down the winding mountain road, you notice things you might have missed before. The way light filters through the leaves, the grace of a deer at the roadside, the persistence of wildflowers growing in impossible places, finding life in cracks and crevices where no soil should sustain them. The road descends, and the forest gradually gives way to scattered houses, then neighborhoods, then the edge of town. The modern world reasserts itself with its signs and signals, its noise and rush and endless demands. But inside you, a quiet space remains, a place that no amount of chaos can entirely overwhelm, a stillness that waits, patient as the mountains themselves, ready to receive you whenever you need to retreat into it. This is the gift the mountains gave you, not an escape from the world, but a different way of being in it, not a rejection of ordinary life, but a deeper appreciation of the extraordinary that hides within it, visible only to those who take the time to look, to listen, to pay attention. You park the car and sit for a moment before getting out, just breathing, just being, holding on to the peace for one more moment before stepping back into the stream of daily life. And then, because it is time, because all things must continue in their cycles, you open the door and step out. Your feet find the pavement. Your eyes adjust to the sharper light of the valley. Your ears begin to filter the sounds of cars and voices and all the machinery of human existence. But in your heart, you carry the mountain. In your bones, you feel the rhythm of ancient trails. In your breath, you taste the clean air of the heights. And in your mind, you hold the stories, waiting for the next night when you can close your eyes and walk once more through the fog, through the darkness, through the peaceful embrace of the old mountains that have seen everything and judged nothing and offered only shelter, only stories, only the endless patient reminder that all things pass and all things continue and the wheel keeps turning, season into season, breath into breath, now and forever, world without end. Rest now. You have journeyed far. You have climbed and descended. You have walked through darkness and emerged into light. You have listened to the old stories and added your own small story to the great tapestry of all who have passed this way. The mountain will be here when you return. The trails will wait. The stories will continue to be told, whispered by wind and water, by the voices of birds and the rustling of leaves, by the slow grinding of stone on stone as the ancient peaks wear themselves down, grain by grain, century by century, age by age. Sleep well, traveler. Dream of misty hollows and firelit cabins. Dream of deer in the forest and hawks circling overhead. Dream of clear streams and star-scattered skies. Dream of peace. The mountains are breathing, and in their breath you are held safe. Now and always, rest.